and I'll chop this off at the start. Hello all, and welcome to episode 62 of the Green Arrow, an FPL podcast by Fantasy Football Hub, as we hit the midway point in Triple Game Week 35 and look ahead to Blank Game Week 36 and beyond. My name is Fergi, and this week, with my regular co-host Adam Hopcroft out of action due to work commitments, I am delighted to welcome one of the best FPL managers and Fantasy Football Hub contributor, Rich Clarke, who is chasing a quite astonishing record of a 15th consecutive top 35k finish. If he can make it to the top 10k, it will be his 9th top 10k finish, which also includes 2 top 500 finishes. Rich, absolutely incredible season again you're having, up to 16k this season. Great to have you on. How is it going?
Thanks, Fergi. Great to be on again and to team up with you. It's going okay. I think I'd summarise this experience as quite a gruelling season, a season that's required a lot of patience and a lot of replanning, often at short notice. And I'm sure I'll get a lot of empathy from that from other fantasy managers that we're nearly there, and one final week of pushing hard to finish the season, which there'll probably be another season never like this again.
We've never seen a season like it, and it's so strange, as you know, kind of doing the graphics and and talking about things every single week. It seems to be blank game week this, double game week this, triple game week this. It's been absolutely mad. It's going to be nice next week just to have a normal game week, and then hopefully the start of next season we will have some kind of normal game weeks, bit of normality. But we're nearly there, Rich. Only a couple of game weeks left. So as we mentioned, you've achieved a top 35k finish, Rich, every season since 2006, which is absolutely ridiculous. 15 years on the trot, you've achieved a top 35k finish. Absolutely extraordinary. Would you mind giving us a few thoughts on how your season has gone? Are there any kind of key points in the season, which you had like massive jumps up the ranks, or has it been a kind of gradual climb? Could you just give us a bit of a summary of your season?
Yeah, sure. I went back over the various game week histories, looking on the main website for this season, and just tried to pick out a few moments that I thought were key. There's definitely been some luck involved. There always is in fantasy football, but there's been some bad luck as well. So I think 3 moments that I'll talk about briefly, all the way back in game week 4, if you can remember, Son Heung-min, he started the season on fire. Tottenham started the season on fire. Everyone was talking about them winning the league. And then he got an injury, or a potential injury, which Jose Mourinho thought was going to keep him out of an international break. That stimulated most people to sell him. Over 1 million people sold him in a game,
including myself, I think. And you know what? Just very, very quickly on that, Rich. He scored, was it the 4 goals in game week really early on? Wasn't it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And I hopped around and missed every single haul of his. But anyway, yeah I do.
I didn't have him for that 4 goal haul. And then I brought him in right. Game week 3, I think it was. But I kept him when he got injured. I said he would have been straight out just after I transferred him in. So I decided to keep him and start him. And he scored 18 points in that week when everyone sold him. And that was a huge swing for me. Took me from 3.1 million to 1.6 million, I think, in 1 week.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
That was one moment. Just by one player that you go against the herd and you keep was quite remarkable. There was another week like that again led to a huge rank increase, which was where I sold Mo Salah and brought in Bruno Fernandes just at the point that his form started to take off. Yeah. Captain Bruno when no one else had him, or not so many people had him, and he was at the start of that run when he then started scoring several double-digit returns in a row. So those 2 weeks were kind of sub 50k game week ranks, and they led to huge rank increases. So that took me from 1.3 million to 600k. The rest of the season has been what I would describe as a slow climb, of being quite hit averse, being patient enough to let players, deliver over a period of weeks, carefully, evolving the squad, and playing quite a long game from a chip strategy perspective. So yeah, it's been a slow climb up from there. And then the only other thing I will mention is that I was a game week 16 wild card, or I still had my first wild card right up to that limit. And that really didn't work out for me because of all the game week 19 double game week fixture changes, when I didn't get City players in, I didn't get Villa players in because they didn't have a double game week. But then all of a sudden they both did, and players that I bought on my wild card did not have doubles anymore, and so that was just really like throwing all the cards up and letting them fall down again. And so having to cope with that, and again slowly recover and slowly build towards a high ranking, it's been really hard work.
Do you know what? I remember back to those, because we were trying to stream and do a podcast which had any relevance or meaning whatsoever, without a lot of the time not even knowing the fixtures like the following week and the week after, and this might happen and that might happen, and trying to plan has been an absolutely crazy season. I can't wait to get back to just having a few game weeks where you can actually make a bit of a plan. But yeah, it's been absolutely nuts. Rich, just to touch on your experience and over the last 15 years of all these crazy high finishes, can I just ask you, how you think the game has evolved in that time? From how you maybe play now a little bit over the last couple of seasons to how you used to play. Has your game changed at all, or do you have a couple of principles you always stick to and they seem to work every season, or just I'm just interested?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think that one or two obvious things are that just the sheer number of well-informed players has exponentially grown over that period. So if you were fairly analytical and took the game fairly seriously, I would say in those first 5 years, then you could do very well just by knowing there was a double game week.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And knowing there was a blank game week, and captaining, an informed player like a Ronaldo or a Salah, or not Salah, or a Frank Lampard or whatever. You could just do really well just by being engaged. Now there's so much information out there that that's not enough anymore. And I find that now there's much more of a time commitment from me in terms of fantasy football. I do, will admit to spending, many hours a week, analysing how I'm going to, do my team, how I'm going to evolve my squad. So it's the time commitment that is required to really play at an effective level, I think, for me.
I think as well, Rich, I don't want to be, a bit of a myth buster, right? Because I've always I've always thought I played the game reasonably simply, and I think last season, I had an awful rank last year, and obviously it's my fault. I made the decisions and things, but I do think I got into that first season syndrome of really, really overthinking. Just trying to be too clever almost. And I've gone back this year and I've just played exactly what's in front of me. Rank's not amazing, kind of 40 odd K, but I'm back into the realms of where I've been for the last sort of 6 or 7 seasons. In terms of how you play, you tend to play quite, a straightforward game, no sort of, Hail Mary kind of captaincy picks or transfers or 1 week massive punts. Would you still say that, that is one of the key ingredients for your sustained success over such a long period?
Yeah, I've always been quite a patient manager. I've always allowed a player that I brought in for 4 to 6 weeks to deliver. I wouldn't bring a player in, then have him blank, and then transfer him out again due to impatience. I find that impatience kill you at fantasy football, and I try and coach that to those that I help. So that's definitely something that's been consistent throughout the years. You've got to be patient. You've got to make accept that any player can blank, for a couple of weeks. And now I think the amount of information, there is an urgency with fantasy football now that doesn't appear to be it doesn't appear to be there in the past. It's everybody. I like.
You almost have to like smash every game week.
Well, there's that scene in, I don't know if you've seen that movie World War Z, where all those people are trying to get over the wall in Jerusalem, and they're just climbing over one another to get to the top.
Right.
This is a movie, and they're all trying to get to the top, and it's like that kind of feels like what fantasy football is like.
Yeah.
You've got to get to the top of the rankings, as soon as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And it's all got to happen to. And actually, if you just take a stand back and let all those people climb over one another, and most of them fall to the bottom. If you actually just patiently play the longer game, you can do very well. I mean, this week is a case in point. With everybody clamouring for the treble game week assets, and then most of them not playing 3 games. You just have to actually not go for the obvious often.
Indeed. Wonderful advice there, Rich, and thank you very much for that. Just so everyone knows, if you're watching or listening, so Rich reveals his strategy, his transfers, and his captain pre-deadline every single week on fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. I mean, I have the pleasure of reading it because I edit and publish it, but I just don't understand why anyone wouldn't read it. It's a fantastic read, but you're also getting into the mind of of one of the, if not the most outstanding FPL manager that has ever been. So we're very, very fortunate to have you there, Rich, on the hub. Anyway, enough of the compliments. I've had enough of this. And more importantly, what colour is your arrow so far in triple game week 35? Have you avoided the violin? That's the question. I've got it at the ready.
I think so far. I think coincidentally, Fergie, we're both on 77 points going into.
Oh, really?
Tonight.
Are we?
I think you're on 77. I'm on 77. So it's not bad. It's a small green arrow from 18k to 16k, but I'm expecting tomorrow night to be, quite down, because I've only got 3 players tomorrow evening in the Liverpool United game, and no players in the Villa Everton game. So I'm expecting a red at the end of the week.
Just to stop you there, Rich, we're getting a notification in the chat. Edwardinho and Nuki have said that Arsenal have scored. Smith Rowe on my bench with a massive haul, apparently. So we'll take a look. Yeah, Smith Rowe has just scored for Arsenal, which I can't say I'm disappointed with, because we both benched. We both got Mendy, Rich, haven't we? And I've also got Rudiger, who's not even in the squad. So the fact that Arsenal have scored, I'm actually quite pleased with that.
Anyone who has got Azpilicueta or other Chelsea assets, then that's the end of the clean sheet.
It is indeed. So just do you just want to run through your team, Rich, for us for this week?
Oh yeah, actually, I'll have to have a look at it just to know exactly who my team is. I don't know if you've got it up on the screen.
Oh yeah, so we've got Mendy in goals.
I've got it here, mate.
Okay.
So I've got Mendy, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Wesley Fofana, Rob Holding, who's playing right now, Joel Ward as a 4-man back 4, James Maddison, who...
You're disappointed, haven't you, Maddison?
Mo Salah, Bruno Fernandes and Son in midfield, and Iheanacho and Kane up front. So I kept the 2 Tottenham assets.
Yes.
Required an immense amount of patience on my front, but I kept them for the Leeds fixture, and obviously have them now this coming week. So that's one good thing. But yeah.
Okay, and you're up to 16k, Rich, at the moment, obviously, but obviously that will likely change by the end of the week. So I'm on 77 -4, as you said. I'm currently on a very small green. Mendy, Shaw, Rudiger and Trent, Jota, Son, Salah and Bruno captain, Calvert-Lewin, Iheanacho, and I got Watkins in for a hit. And if I'd have just left in Keenan Dave, I brought Keenan Davis in for a hit 2 weeks ago, and now I've taken him out for a hit, and Watkins gets a red card. Serves me right. And now Davis is going to start tomorrow because Watkins is banned as well. So tomorrow is the day I'm going to get stung by a 13-pointer off Davis. I know it. Someone's in the chat says, in goals, a Fergieism. Do I say in goals? In goals? I've always said in goals since I was a kid. Oh, you're in goals, or I'm in goals. I don't know. Maybe I do. Maybe like this. That's a bit of my misspent youth coming through there, playing over the park with all my mates. Forster on my bench with 10. Dallas on my bench with 9 with Lingard and Kufar. But so far, reasonably pleased. So you've got the 3 playing tomorrow night. Looking at it, I've actually got 6, Rich, because I've got Shaw, Trent, Jota, Salah, Bruno, and Calvert-Lewin playing tomorrow. So I took the -4 after I took out Kane for Calvert-Lewin. You know, and this is maybe where our approach differed a little bit. You probably maybe thought it, but your patient approach means you saved the hit and you've got him for next week. I was quite happy really to a bit of a hokey cokey, you know, to get him in and out. It hasn't worked with Watkins, wasted the hit there, but it's kind of worked with Calvert-Lewin, and you know, we'll touch on it later. But I am planning on getting Kane back this game week for another hit, most likely. But yeah,
I think I think my patient approach may well have been. I'm not sure whether it was a measurable mistake yet, but I think I'm probably one of the only people who carried a transfer last week.
Right. Okay. You carried transfer, and how many have you got? Just
well, I've got two transfers for next week. You know, for this coming game week. But that's because one of the reasons I didn't go after, you know, United players or Liverpool players or whatever is because I played my wild card in game week 31 and went very heavy on Leicester and their fixtures. I've actually got, before I made any transfers last week, 6 players missing from game week 36. That's before any injuries, before any suspensions, before anything else that might happen between now and then. I had 6 players already out. So the only way I could really make changes was to sub some of those players that blank anyway. Yeah. So I could have taken Maddison out for Greenwood, which is obviously something that I would like to have done in retrospect.
Yeah.
Just to keep it at 6. You know, if I'd have sold Son to create funds for Maguire, which was the other move I was thinking of making, that would have put me up to 1 less player,
of course,
you know, next week, and then I'd have had an injured Harry Maguire. So that one, you could argue, was the right decision because Son scored and Maguire got 1 point and so on and so forth. But, you know, I felt trapped. I couldn't really go for it in the double. And also I really feel that it's not all about game week 35. I will have a strong team for the last 3 weeks now as a result. So I felt that was slightly of higher value than just busting a gut for game week 35.
No, I agree, and you know, it's easy in hindsight, right? You know, with Greenwood, for example, you know, he looks like he's going to have a mega haul, but he doesn't play in 36. You know, and you kind of have played the percentages, don't you, Rich? I think we play the game the same way. You know, I said it's, you know, I say this every week on the stream of the podcast about looking at game weeks in blocks. You know, I was definitely looking at 35 and 36. Look at the end of 36 to see how your little strategy for that particular time has worked out, because there's no point hitting, I don't know, maybe 80 or 90 in game week 35 and hitting 20 in 36 if the average of the 2 weeks is 130 or 140, for example. So.
Precisely, and I will actually try and go out and measure that, you know, because I read someone else tweeted, I said it's really, really good when considering this triple game week to look at 35 and 36 as one
absolutely
block and measure your points across those 2 weeks, and then we'll see. You know.
Completely agree, Rich. Yeah. Okay, as we are live, just so everyone knows who's watching now, we were live earlier. Well, we thought we were live for a good 16 or 17 minutes. It turns out we were talking the 60, 70 minutes and we weren't live, but we are now. So as we are now live, please feel free to join in the chat at any time. Let us know your thoughts on the topics or the relevant sections, and feel free to ask some questions which we will try and answer throughout. Good evening, everyone who's finally with us. Thank you so much for joining us. Sanjay Patel, I did actually give you the violin earlier, so I'll do it again. This is for you, Sanjay Patel, because you took a -8 apparently earlier on. You put in the chat when we thought we were live. You were going to take a -12 and it costed you 26 points, and that is really, really unfortunate there. But welcome Liam Brees, Ahmed, Adam, Edward Dino, Nuki, Sanjay, Summers, FPL Alex the Kid, James Hardin, Tal, Ricky Donahoe. Welcome one and welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are on while Chelsea are playing Arsenal. Chelsea 0, Arsenal 1 after about 25 minutes or so. And Marcus and FPL Bude said, I was live waiting. Absolute heroes. Thank you so much for that, because you would have had a long wait. For any new watchers and listeners, if you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, set the alerts so you don't miss our live streams previewing every game right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. James says it was live. No, everyone was saying it wasn't live. Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to go and chop off the first half of it. Anyway, let's move on without further ado. So this evening, Rich and I will look at the remaining fixtures and try to help ourselves and others make decisions on who the best second and third striker slots picks are. As although that Wilson is now crocked for Newcastle's, he was going to be my transfer in game week 37, I think. There are a fair few mid-price strikers fighting to get into our FPL teams. We will take a look at an optimal blank game week 36 free hit team and also some player picks for the remainder of the season. We will reveal our blank game week 36 teams and plans so far, look at the best captaincy options, give the competition results from game week 34, and look to give away another prize this week before finally taking a look at the top of the Green Arrow Podcast Mini League if we can. So firstly, Rich, we have the fixture ticker from fantasyfootballhub.co.uk on screen, sorted by ease for the final 3 game weeks of the season. Rich, with these fixtures in mind, what are your initial thoughts on how to approach them? Sorry, I'll just read out a few. So Liverpool are top. They've got West Brom, Burnley and Palace as their final 3. Leeds have got Burnley, Southampton and West Brom. Sheffield United come next, then Southampton, then West Ham. Right at the bottom, Leicester. We've only got 2 fixtures left, and they're against Chelsea and Spurs. Chelsea themselves have got Leicester, then away to Villa. Arsenal have got Palace and Brighton, and then Brighton, Man United and Wolves fill up those bottom slots there. So Rich, looking at these fixtures, what are your thoughts on how to approach this final period?
Okay. Well, hopefully there won't be any more fixture changes.
Let's hope.
In game weeks 36 to 38, unless there's another protest or another postponement. But hopefully we will actually just get 3 groups of 10 fixtures that are then played out. But they are going to be played out over what's little more than a week. So
Indeed.
We've got this weekend another set of fixtures midweek with fans back in the stadium for a set of games, and then the inverse, other 10 teams get their fans in for the last games of the season. So they'll be great to watch, great to see fans back. But that's a lot of rotation is possible in those 10 days or in those 9 days of fixtures. So I think it's important in every season to focus on acquiring players from teams with something to play for. Sounds obvious, but by that I mean if you're targeting a team like a West Ham, a Chelsea, a Leicester, and Everton, they're playing for European spots, yep. Champions League, Europa League spots. It's a big deal for West Ham to get in the Europa League. So they will be playing their best team right up until the end of the season. Liverpool too, until they actually cannot qualify for the Champions League, will be heavily prioritizing a good finish to the season to ensure they get European football next year. So those players from those teams make common sense to acquire. And after the game week we're in now, there'll be an awful lot of players that you'll want to start offloading. If you look down the bottom of that ticker, you'll see Leicester only have 2 games left. They're against Chelsea and Tottenham. So really, they've got to be a priority to come off the Leicester players or look at options. You might keep Iheanacho through form, but you want to try and get rid of players from Leicester, possibly get rid of players from Chelsea too, because they have the cup final, because they have the Champions League final. I know I've contradicted myself a little bit by saying they've got something to play for, but there's so much rotation.
Look at this evening with Kepa in place of Mendy. I mean, that's just a killer.
They're now a danger for not starting. If you have Rudiger, if you have Mendy, you don't know they're going to start the last 2 fixtures. You don't even know that. You've got to look at taking players out who are at risk of starting. But your secondary priority should be, well, who do I get? Who do I target? Now, we haven't mentioned, we've mentioned Liverpool. Their fixtures are amazing and they're motivated. So I would say, love Liverpool. I also haven't got any of their players, but I love Leeds for the last 3 fixtures. I think they've got 3 great fixtures. They are in form. Their manager Bielsa won't let them rest up and put their feet up. So I love Leeds. I like West Ham for the last 3 fixtures. Those are three that I really do like. I think you could hold Everton players, and personally, I won't be reinvesting in Manchester City assets. There could be some differential options there.
I think there might be. We'll talk about them in a second, but
we'll talk about them. But I think it's too risky just based on some of the other fires I've got to put out.
Of course,
players blanking and so on and so forth. I can't really bring in a rotation risk this week, and so on. But I can understand why some people might want a KDB or a Foden or somebody like that for the last few games.
Got questions for you, Rich. Do you think we should target the teams that have gone down? Target the teams that have just survived? Because it's a bit of a strange situation, because normally all those bottom 6 or 7 teams are normally, almost all of them are always scrapping to the end of the season, but it's very rare that 3 have gone down and teams are now safe. Do you think we should target those as being, kind of on the beach or not, or do you still think that they will play with a bit of intensity until the end of the season?
I certainly think it's a good strategy to look at getting a player in that maybe has a Fulham, Sheffield United, or a Newcastle. And now Wilson's out for Newcastle. I think they're targetable again. They're not going to necessarily put the ball in the back of the net, so they're good targets for defenders to play against. They're also unlikely to score a lot of goals. So the teams down the bottom, in the bottom 6, bottom 7, the Southamptons, the Burnleys, the Brightons, those guys are some of them are playing all right. Burnley are playing okay, but their table position is not that strong. So I do think the relegated teams are definitely targetable, and that you want to look for a pattern where there's 2 or 3 fixtures against those bottom 6 sides, bottom 7 sides that that are out there, and there are 1 or 2 players that leap out.
In terms of Game Week 36, obviously now this is a blank game week. So part of the reason why I made a couple of the moves I made last week, so as mentioned earlier, I brought in Calvert-Lewin and Watkins. Part of the reason for that is to kind of make sure that I could get out 11 reasonably comfortably in 36. And my plan was to take out Iheanacho, who's obviously blanking in 36 and has the 2 horrible fixtures at the end, to get Kane in again. So that was my kind of thinking, and my plan was to kind of optimize both game weeks there for a hit, which I think will reasonably work out. But for those who are going into the game week with maybe 7 players, maybe 8 players, what are your thoughts, on needing to get 11 players out for hits? Or do you think you can get by with maybe 8 or 9 with either no hits or a -4, but kind of concentrating on making sure that you've got a decent team for 37 and 38?
Yeah, good question. I think a lot depends on what your individual goals are for that particular season. If you're looking to make up a lot of ground in ranking or in mini league and catch one of the team or win a prize, then I think it's okay to take some risks at this time. Enjoy the last 3 weeks. Get players that will excite you, that you'll enjoy watching the football and seeing them score. So someone like an Antonio or something, will be a good person to bring in. I think if you are out in front, of a mini league and you've only got 7 or 8 starters for this weekend, then you need to be a bit more cautious with your hits, and if you've really gone for it in 35, I think hits, this term that hits are cheap in blank or double game weeks. I do believe that is true most of the time, but make sure the player you bring in isn't just for game week 36. Make sure you're going to give him 3 weeks for that hit to pay back. So look
like a Leeds player, for an example.
Yeah, if you look at I haven't. I've had Stuart Dallas pretty much all of the season.
Yeah.
I bought him 4.5 million, and I sold him on my game week 31 wildcard reluctantly because Leeds had a run of tough fixtures. Now I'd really regret that.
Yeah, I bet. Mind you, I think in all fairness, everyone who's owned him, including myself, has
Exactly.
he's been third on the bench every week. So
Exactly. So he is, he's almost playing as a striker nowadays.
it's unbelievable, isn't he?
He's the 6-yard box, hogger. I mean, he's coming back in this week for me. And over those 3 weeks,
yeah,
with the fixtures that Leeds have, I just, wouldn't want to be without him. So yeah, absolutely. Just make sure that you look at it as a block of fiction. Say, if I'm going to take a -4 to get Dallas back, he's got to pay me back. He possibly could score a couple of goals and pick up a couple of clean sheets in that time, in which case, and bonus points to boot. So you could easily pay back that -4. So, and it also, I think one of the, again, I've got a fairly weak defence, at the moment. I've got the likes of Holding and Joel Ward, who had, cheap double game weeks this season. I don't want to play them every week for the rest of the season. They're okay to be reserve players on the bench, but, I really want a strong back 3 for the last 3 games. So you've got to look at the structure of your team. Who don't I want anymore? And if it's just a player that plays in game week 36, but hasn't got a high points potential, then again, I think you've got to look at taking a hit for next week, especially if it helps you get an extra player, because it's really worth 2 points anyway straight away. So.
Really, really good advice there, Rich. I suppose I just add from my perspective there, in terms of hits, I kind of look at it. I'm pretty hit averse normally. I think from 34, 35 onwards, because we had the doubles, because we had the blanks and whatever else. And I kind of look at it. So I've taken a hit now the last 2 weeks. I've definitely taken a hit again this coming week. But the way I'm thinking about it now is that because we come to the end of the season, again, looking at things in a block, right? So over these next 3 game weeks now, if the average an average FPL game week score is say 60 odd points, right? We've only got 3 transfers left for the last 3 game weeks, whereas you could in essence buy another 3 for 12 points. Now 12 out of 160 for me to get basically double the amount of transfers for me is probably worth it, and that's the way I'm kind of looking at it now. I won't take a hit unless I need a hit, but I do think hits now, especially only a -4, obviously not just for 1 game week, right? So just an example, I've hokey cokeyed out Kane and Vardy the last 2 weeks unsuccessfully, I might add. Well, it was a success this week in terms of Kane blanked. But, I brought in Vardy for a hit for his game against Palace, which he blanked in. I brought Kane back in for Sheffield United, which he blanked in, and things. But I've still managed to get smallish green arrows, because the rest of my team is quite good. So I think that's the only thing I would add in there in terms of hits. I completely agree with what you say in terms of, only take hits if it's, a kind of for the final 3 game weeks. But I thought the more interesting point you mentioned there was around mini leagues. Now, the only reason really I've ever played fantasy football is for mini league, and I think that for people who have played the games a long time, overall rank has probably only come onto people's radars, I think, reasonably sort of recently. And to me, it's not like massively important, because it doesn't matter if I'm 5,000th or 50,000th. If I'm top of my mini league, which is what I play the game for, that's kind of all that matters. And I suppose
that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Well, the only thing that I would urge people, if you're just focused on overall rank, it's very, very difficult to get a good overall rank every season, unless you're rich, right? Who's kind of one of a kind. But if you're not in mini leagues with mates, then I would urge people who aren't to try and go into those mini. And I'm not talking about the mini leagues which have got 1,000 odd people in. I'm talking about a mini league with 6, 8, 10, 12 of you, where you just compete against each other and have a bit of fun, because it can be very, very easy to think that I'm rank 50,000th or I'm rank 100,000. I'm not having a great season or a very meh season, when actually in all likelihood, 100,000 rank nowadays is probably a very good rank, and it's probably the equivalent, in my opinion. It's not for everyone, but 100,000 rank nowadays to me is the same as a 10,000 rank it was maybe 7 or 8 seasons ago, because of the engagement, because of the number of players and things. So I just think it's very easy to get down on fantasy football when you think you've had an okay season, but spice it up a bit by entering some mini leagues with your friends, and I mean the small ones. I don't mean these massive ones where, again, the winner of a 1,000 strong mini league will probably end up in the top 100 or 200. So just something that I see a lot of people just spending the whole fantasy season down in the dumps, and it's like you've got to have something to keep your tail up. But anyway, let's move on. And now we've got a slide from Fantasy Football Hub on screen, filtered by expected points over the last 6 appearances from our Opta Stats tool. So looking at this, we've got Salah is actually top over the last 6 appearances for expected points with 8. Chris Wood, I mean, we'll talk about Wood a bit more in a second, but 7.3. He's been absolutely incredible form. Mane is third. So we mentioned Mane last week, 7.3. Pereira for West Brom. Harry Kane with 6.4, Greenwood with 6.3, Jota with 6.1 there. But Rich, in terms of like specific plays for the final 3, I'll just start off now in terms of Man City. So you mentioned earlier you're not going to chuck a Hail Mary in with someone like Mahrez, for example. But I personally think I've looked at Man City, and they rested all their superstars last weekend. They haven't had a match in midweek either. They've only got 4 matches left now. 3 of them are league games, and one is the Champions League final. So players like Mahrez, Foden, Bernardo Silva, De Bruyne, and Gundogan, their front sort of Champions League first 5 are going to need game time. Now, looking how the fixtures fall, I personally think that they, some or all of them, will play against Newcastle. I think they will then be rested midweek, and then I think they will play that final game in game week 38, because then it gives them another week then. So they're basically playing once a week for the next fortnight, and then they'll be nice and fresh for the final. So I personally think that someone like Mahrez or Foden, maybe even Silva, De Bruyne, Gundogan, I think they could be decent low-owned options. Now, I probably won't go for them because, as you said, it's all about, transfer management, other fires to fight and stuff. But, in terms of like free hit maybe, or maybe if you are looking for a bit of a player to kind of, have a bit of a shunt on, Mahrez captain, Foden captain could be really exciting.
Absolutely. If you think the only way you're going to catch, let's say you're 30, 40 points behind the leader in your mini league, or your best mate you want to beat, whatever, you've got to get a differential at this time. You've got to make your team different to his or hers, and you've got to bring in, a player that they're not going to bring in, and then you've maybe got a captain them. So saying, okay, Mahrez is a great example. So Mahrez probably won't start all 3 games.
No, I don't think
so. Therefore, for me, and I am chasing the top 10k rank, I just think it's too risky having 8.5 million on somebody who is only going to start tops 2 of those 3 games, and may only start 1 of those 3 games. He'll definitely start 1, and he's been on fire in the Champions League, etc., etc. So great choice, but a risky choice. I think if your team is in such good shape that you have a good bench for game week 36, I would think most people have got a bench that doesn't exist for game week 36.
Well, yeah.
Maybe they've only got 3 or 4 missing, but they still won't have a bench unless they make some transfers. And the last thing you want is to bring in a player that is at risk of not starting. So it is really risky in 36 to bring in a Mahrez or a Foden or a player where there's doubt over his start, unless you have a free hit, which means you can put some nice cheap substitutes in there that will come on if they don't start or don't play, and you can obviously go for it on the free hit. So that's just my thoughts on 36 is really risky, but you probably can predict it will be a strong lineup. The Mickey Mouse lineup that Pep put out against Chelsea was was almost like I think maybe you said last week when you were on, was saying, is Pep gonna not keep his cards close to his chest and not show his Champions League final side? And I think he did. He tried not
Absolutely.
to. He was playing games, and he lost the game as a result.
So who are the players then? So we've had some questions in the chat, around Kane and Son. So obviously, Kane, since he's back from injury, hasn't done anything. Son, Son has been okay, I think, especially for his price. I just think with Son, for his price, that kind of 9 million rank, he's very dangerous. He scores points. He's streaky. We know that. He scored a lot of points in the first half of the season. He went on a run and didn't, but he is in the kind of in the zone at the moment for scoring points, and they have got a couple of nice fixtures as well. In terms of players, Spurs, West Ham. I've got Soufal in my team, and I've got Lingard as well. There's been some chat about Antonio. We're going to look at the mid-price strikers specifically next. Liverpool players, right? So I personally think if you haven't got 3 Liverpool players, have you got 3? You haven't, have you? You've got 2.
No, I had 3, and I sold Jota last weekend to bring Son back in.
Yes, so that makes sense.
I've done the back and forth with Son all season. I think you've had him all season, haven't you? And never left your side.
More or less, yeah.
I've come off him and on him, and I must have lost about 1 million.
Yeah, probably.
In losing value in Son when I have him, and paying a premium for him when I don't, and just back and forth. But I thought I'm going to get him in for the remainder of the season, and I'm going to keep him in.
Yeah.
And so we're going to see how that works out. He is an awkward price. He's kind of between that 10 million plus premium player, and probably started at 9 million, didn't he? And he's gone up now.
He did. That's it. He just
price makes it difficult if you've got him in as, say, your third mid.
Yeah.
To have much spare budget elsewhere.
So for Liverpool, Rich, I think that Trent and Salah, with their fixtures and with their form, probably nailed on in most teams. In terms of your third one, would you go for there's Mane, obviously now he's expensive. You need to release a premium elsewhere, but he looks good. Obviously there's Jota, who has flattered to deceive, to say the least. How he's just been dodging points week on week, haven't he? It's been unbelievable. You've got players like maybe Robertson. Who would your third Liverpool player of choice be now?
Well, I think if you've got Jota, you keep him, obviously. I actually don't think he's going to start tomorrow night against United.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
They did, just before the game was called off, they did put the side out. They named the team, and he wasn't in it. He was benched last time. So if he goes with Firmino instead, and it is, I guess, Firmino's turn to play because Jota played at the weekend, then next week he should be all right for West Brom. So I think he's a good choice to bring in. So he'd be one. I quite like Nat Phillips as an enabler. If you're looking to generate budget and get rid of one of these players from, say, a Leicester or a Chelsea who we're kind of done with in defence, you can generate I think it's 4.1. So he's a good choice. Probably looking at a couple of clean sheets. And actually, we haven't talked about it yet, Fergie. I'm one of the many managers who've got the Mendy Forster goalkeeper combination, which is, we've seen tonight, is risky for the rest of the season for both of those guys. And Alisson is a good shout as a goalkeeper change.
I can't argue with that. That's a really good shout, I think.
So obviously they're going to be going for it right to the end. He hasn't really got someone who's going to get switched out for him. And for that way, you get a guaranteed goalkeeper that you can bring in. So he's another shout. But I would say if you haven't got Jota, he's still a great option. But I'm not sure I'll be bringing Jota back.
What about Everton? So they've got decent fixture, especially in 36, 37. So they're home to Sheffield United, which is obviously a plum fixture. Home to Wolves, I believe, in Gameweek 37. They do have a difficult game in 38. They're targeting these next to Calvert-Lewin. He's the obvious one. He's back. He's back to playing as that central kind of figure up front and taking the chances. I quite like Godfrey, he's been a hoover for bonus points. He has got the odd assist as well. I know Digne is popular and Coleman, but Everton seem to have improved defensively. I saw some stats where when Allen is playing, then he makes a big difference at Everton defensively. Have you got your eye? I note at the moment you haven't got any Everton players. Have you got your eye on bringing any Everton players?
Probably not. I mean, we're running out of transfers. I think the time to get Calvert-Lewin was last week. Okay. If you were going to make that move off Kane or bring him in, I think it's a transfer that I didn't look at, mainly because I suppose my opinion of Everton is mediocre. I don't see them as a consistently high performing team. I think they start games very well. They're pacey. They attack well in the first 20 minutes, and that's when a Calvert-Lewin grabs a lot of his goals early on in games. But I don't feel desperate about owning their players, any of their players. Okay. I'll consider them. I've had Luca Dean, and he disappointed me massively for about 8 weeks, and I couldn't wait to get rid of him on my wild card in game 31. I haven't wanted him back. Now, obviously, they're going through a good spell, and I think those with them for the Sheffield United game will do well. But I think I'll be looking at players from other teams personally.
So before we look a bit more in depth at the mid-price strikers, are there any more players at all, Rich? In the final three that we haven't mentioned yet, who you've got your eye on, maybe?
Yeah, I've definitely got my eye on bringing Rafinha back in.
He looked dangerous even when he came on against Spurs, and he got the assist.
Yeah, exactly. He got the assist. I suppose there's a chance he might be on the bench again if he's being very careful with him, Bielsa. But I actually think he'll start the last three. He's had plenty of time to rest and recover. And I think he's an exciting, in my case, fifth midfielder that will be definitely play in 36 and possibly be a great first bench option for the last two games. So definitely he's coming in, and he's really just because of his price. He's got a high ceiling, but also can generate the cash for me to make other moves. So he's someone I really like. I've already mentioned Dallas. I've got 2 transfers this week, so they may both be Leeds guys.
I just speak up a bit, Rich, if it's all right. Sorry, he keeps going off. I saw he's going a bit quiet.
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, I said I mentioned Stuart Dallas. So basically, 2 Leeds guys could be my 2 transfers this week.
I think the only ones I've got on my list, which we probably haven't mentioned, so I'm thinking of taking Bruno out this week for the blank, but I definitely want him back for 37. I think home to Fulham. I also think he plays in 30 as well. I think that a lot of people think that United are going to rest their team because obviously they've got the Europa League final on the Wednesday. I think that they think they're going to rest in 38, but I think that continuity is really important, and I don't think he'll play everyone. I can see Cavani getting a rest, maybe Rashford. If his ankle is still playing him up, though he seems to be starting more now. But I think that Bruno will. He'll definitely play in 37, but I think he'll play in 38 too. And the only other one, so we talked about earlier. Wilson. It's such a shame he's injured for Newcastle because he looked absolutely lightning against Leicester. But Newcastle's final 2 fixtures are really, really nice against Sheffield United at home and then Fulham away. I do think Saint-Maximin again, looking at a player who could, a kind of lowish owned, low budget player. If you're looking for someone to maybe give you a bit of a boost, I do think he could be a good option. Not for 36 because they've got Man City, but 37 and 38. If you plan ahead a little bit, I do think he could be an option there. But one of the main questions on everyone's lips is which mid-price strikers should we be targeting for the final 3 games, because we've got a whole plethora here. At the moment, we've got Opta Stats on screen, and therefore would Calvert-Lewin, Antonio, and Bamford. So we've taken Iheanacho out of this only because, even though he's been in absolutely incredible form, he blanks in 36, and the fixtures for 37. They're away to Chelsea, and they've got Spurs in 38. So for the argument of this, we've taken him out. But what our Opta Stats tool shows, the expected points for these 4 strikers over the last 6 game weeks. Chris Wood averaging 7.3 per game. I mean, he's been absolutely sensational. Calvert-Lewin averaging 5.6 per game. He's only played 4 in that time, but he's averaged 5.6. Antonio, he's played the last 3. He's averaging 4.3. And Bamford, surprisingly, even though he's played all 6, he's only averaging expected points of 4.1 per appearance. So, Chris Wood way in front, Calvert-Lewin second there. Looking at those players, Rich, which of those 4 would you kind of prioritise for getting in if you had to over the last 3?
Okay, yeah, no, I've thought about this, and actually, I've ranked them 1 to 4. I think the one I'm almost convinced I'm going to get is Antonio.
Right.
I've got a triple transfer on my mind for the weekend, and the final piece of that is to. I think I've got exact money to be able to bring in Antonio in for Vidra, who's my kind of third bench striker.
Yeah.
And I'm considering doing that rather than selling Iheanacho for Antonio, because despite the last 2 fixtures, Iheanacho's not a bad person to bench or have if there's rotation, and he could still score against Chelsea or Spurs or whatever. So because of Iheanacho's form and the fact I got him at 5.7 million, he's I'm quite happy to keep him till the end of the season. It's just Vidra. Would I make a sideways move to sell Vidra for Chris Wood? Is that something I'm going to do? I'm not sure. So Vidra is a player that I'm thinking of moving on for Antonio. I like West Ham's fixtures. I like the fact they're going for Europe. And if you remember back, I think with 1 or 2 games to go last season, Antonio scored 4 goals, in one game.
It's Norwich, wasn't it?
Final fixtures,
He's that sort of player, isn't he?
Exactly. And this week he's playing Brighton, who don't have Lewis Dunk because he was sent off. Veltman is injured, so they're going to be a patched up defence at Brighton. Then he's got West Brom, who've been relegated, and Southampton, with his in front of their own fans. I like a lot of things about Antonio for that 3 week move, and he's still quite low owned. He's like 4 or 5% owned or something, if I'm right, and therefore that's going to really help your ranking if you get him in early.
Yeah.
and he fires. If he scores again, like 2 at the weekend or something, then everyone will have him in for the last 2 games. And
is your thinking skewed at all? So have you got Lingard, Rich?
I've got Lingard, and I think Lingard might be coming to the end of his purple patch a little bit.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. FPL Alex Akir is also just stuck in the chat. Have Lingard, that's why I didn't go Antonio. Already have an attacker for West Ham, and I think that's my kind of stance on it as well. I don't really want to double up on West Ham attack because
Bell as well. So I've got.
Oh well, okay, but in terms of West Ham attack, and it's interesting because obviously each player is individual, and they can both score points or no score points, or one does and one not. But I do wonder if it does make a difference in terms of thinking, because I've got the same, because I've got Rafinha now, and this is why I'm not really that interested in Bamford either. But I do wonder whether it's subconsciously playing on my mind and whether it's the right decision to actually ignore the double up just because I've got coverage, for example. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I'm not always a great fan of certainly doubling up in defence is something I rarely do on players, but I just look at the Antonio's price, and I look at his ceiling, and his potential, West Ham's potential to score a lot of goals in the last 3 games, and I just like it now. Liverpool aren't really playing that well, so triple up on Liverpool. Two Liverpool attackers is another choice. I wouldn't. I wouldn't perhaps get Rafinha and Bamford. I'd probably rather have Dallas and Rafinha because Dallas is another attacker.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, good thinking.
And clean sheets as well. So I'd probably go that. But yeah, Bamford is a good choice, and he's also on penalties and could finish the season well. So they're all good choices, but I just can't bring myself to make one of those crucial last transfers on a Burnley player.
Why not, Rich?
Well, just because I don't know. I just from a past performance and past reputation, Burnley are unlikely to score, 7 or 8 goals in the last 3 weeks. Now they might do. They might prove me wrong. I just wouldn't bet on it.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Just to catch up in the chat, Aman24 says, I'm worried about Antonio's hamstrings. Our FPL tips, who writes for Fantasy Football Hub, agree on Antonio. Was in the differential article this week, so he's in your camp with Antonio there, Rich. Maro Zaraski brought Lingard in, hoping for a late West Ham surge. So, Aman also says Leeds playing in front of a crowd against West Brom in Game Week 38 screams goals. Potentially, even though the crowd is only going to be up to 10,000, I think, isn't it? But, it'll still be a crowd.
Yeah, indeed, and I think they'll be going. They always go for it, don't they? So that'll be an exciting game. You definitely want to have a couple of Leeds assets by then, I would imagine.
So we've touched on Antonio, Rich. So you're in terms of priority, you've said Antonio. You're not bothered for Wood. Where do you sit on Bamford and Calvert-Lewin?
So I'd rank them: Antonio 1, Bamford 2, DCL 3, Wood 4.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's the order I'd put them in. Now, I just think the time to get Calvert-Lewin was last week, not this week, and that's really about as far as I thought. I thought the opportunity is gone because I haven't got the double out of him. I'm not going to be bringing him in for Sheffield United because he's too expensive. I can't get to him easily. Unless I sell Kane, which I wouldn't do when he's got a home match against Wolves. So he's there. I mean, I wish people who have got him good luck. I think you'll do very well, and then in tomorrow and at the weekend. But I won't be bringing him in. But I would say Bamford was a good option, just given Leeds' fixtures and their enthusiasm, and the fact that Rafinha is back in the team will increase his potential for more points.
Okay, so we've just got a couple of graphics to show. The first one compares Bamford against Antonio over the last 6 games. This is for games started, and as you can see on screen, Antonio's performance far exceeds Bamford's. The only stat that Bamford is ahead of Antonio over this period is big chances, but Antonio's had nearly double the amount of shots in the box. He's had more shots on target. Double the amount of shots, double the amount of touches in the box, and double the amount of final third passes. So interestingly, Antonio kind of spanks Bamford in those stats. However, our next graphic is even more interesting because it compares Chris Wood against Antonio, and Chris Wood annihilates Antonio on every single stat of the last 6 game weeks, and more than double in terms of expected points, expected goals, big chances. Shots in the box is fairly close, but double shots on target, nearly double the amount of shots, and they're quite close on touches in the box. But Chris Wood's stats are just absolutely fantastic. And I've got to be honest, I missed it, but I brought in Wood on my wild card, I think in 31.
Yeah.
I played him in 31. I think he blanked on where I got an assist. But then I took him out he was either 32 or 33 because I brought in Keenan Davis, as kind of a downgrade to be able to upgrade somewhere else. I can't remember. And ever since then, Chris Wood has gone on and absolutely smashed it. But he's never really massively been on my radar. But looking at those stats, they're pretty sensational, and their fixtures, they're home to Leeds, which will be a hard game. He can maybe get a goal in that one. Home to Liverpool, maybe. Away to Sheffield United. It's kind of my it's kind of the fixtures that put me off a little bit.
I think with one of them's Liverpool, right? So you've got to you've got to say, well, there's only two, maybe one great last fixture there against Sheffield United.
Yeah, because Leeds have improved defensively as well, haven't they? As well,
two tough fixtures against Leeds and Liverpool. Leeds are playing very well. So I I just don't fancy him based on the fixture. I mean, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
Would you if you had 1.6 million to upgrade, only 1.6 million to upgrade Vidra to Antonio?
Yeah.
Would you do that and spend all your money, or would you ditch Iheanacho and keep Vidra on your bench, assuming that he's not going to lose his start and he's there either as a bench player or to play in 36 in my case, because I need him to start, and therefore you ditch Iheanacho and keep a bit of money in reserve for your last two transfers?
I think, regardless of the money, I think the point I made earlier on how I'm playing at the moment and how I'm going to play these last 3 game weeks is I'm not really worried about taking a hit. So I suppose I know I'm not answering your question exactly.
No, you are correctly. Yeah.
But I think indirectly, I wouldn't be worried about. I would take a hit to get the team you want every week now. Get the captain you want every week, and optimize your team every week. Because, like I say, a -12, let's just say, over the last 3 game weeks, to me, if you can put out top side every game week, over an average of 50 or 60 points a game week, I truly think it's worth it at this time of the season. So, I say, I mean, kind of indirectly doing it there, I wouldn't be worried. I would just move on who you want to move on and get in.
Who you want to get in?
Who you want to get in. That's my approach at this time of the season. I wouldn't have said it earlier, but like I say, we're not thinking long term anymore. We're just trying to optimize these last 3 weeks.
Right, but I'm in this situation I don't like, which is I've got 0.0 in the bank, and when you've got
you can take a hit next game week.
I'm going to take, and I'm probably going to take a hit this weekend.
Yeah.
Get away from that, and with that triple transfer, with 2 frees, if I do the moves I'm thinking involving Antonio, I'll end up with 0.0.
Oh, even with the hit. Oh, right. Okay.
With the hit.
I do it.
Absolutely.
Do it, Rich. It's time. You're attacking, aren't you? You're attacking. Okay, it's costing you a hit, but you're getting the team you want for the fight. And they.
You'll see later on one of the slides.
Yeah. We'll have a look at your team later, definitely.
So it's just whether whether Iheanacho still is, a spent force.
I wouldn't say spent. I just think there's better options. That's I'm looking. You look at these strikers plus Kane.
You could move him on for Bamford, couldn't you?
Exactly. You got Bamford, Calvert-Lewin, Wood, Antonio, Kane, and they're just 5. Off the top of my head, who are all better options over the last 3 weeks, personally. But as you say, it's personal.
Thank you. I think you've
personal preference. Just in terms of what I think about the 4, I think the priority for me, again, it's kind of going against you a little bit. And James Harden agrees with me. He says, not sure I get the DCL missed the boat argument. 2 great fixtures against Sheffield United and Wolves. Could outscore Antonio over the 3 games easily and could be a final transfer if absolutely needed. So I can agree with this. So I think the priority should be Calvert-Lewin. I actually think he's a really good captaincy option this week as well. Home to Sheffield United. I think he's a really good option. We'll obviously get to see how he plays tomorrow night against Aston Villa first, but I still think he's good to have in. You can also take him out then in 38 because I think they've got Man City, haven't they, in 38. You could even do Calvert-Lewin to Bamford in 38 for their game against West Brom, just for example. Again, I'm trying to think, a little bit attacking.
Have you captained Calvert-Lewin already this season?
I did once, and it was against Leeds. It was early on in the season. I don't know if you remember it, but Leeds were shipping goals like nobody's business, conceding like 3 every game. And I captained him against Leeds, and he blanked. So maybe it's not the best idea, but...
No, it's brave because he's not on penalties. Again,
I do like that penalties thing. I do like, it's a bit of a saviour.
I do like to captain a player that's on penalties.
I do as well because you don't have to play well to score a penalty. We always say it.
And Everton are just again have just not been a team that have convinced me throughout the season. Everyone had DCL for the first 15 weeks, didn't they? But it's just not a player that I would dream of captaining.
Okay, no, that's fair enough. That's fair. Yeah, yeah. And this is why you're where you are. You're the Kane, Salah, Bruno, talisman for the best team on penalties, which I've done. I do that kind of 95% or more of the time as well. But I did captain him once. I thought I'd take a bit of a punt, and it did not work whatsoever. Just to confirm then, our prediction tool for the final 3 weeks shows the top point scorer is going to be Mo Salah. So targeting those Liverpool fixtures we kind of mentioned already. Then Kane is second. So, we mentioned Kane. He's not been on form. The prediction tool says that. And to be honest, we say he's not on form. He played away to Leeds, who have improved massively defensively. He scored 2 goals. One was, I still think it was onside, but anyway.
Completely onside.
I think the first one was. Second one, maybe not, and he hit the bar with a free kick. Okay, so he didn't get the points, but my goodness, he should have got at least 1 goal in that. So I think the King's a good option. Mane comes out third, which is quite interesting. Alexander-Arnold comes out fourth. So, triple up on Liverpool is highly advised for this last 3. And it's actually Son who comes out fifth. So Liverpool and Spurs, the prediction tool likes those 2 teams. And then just filtered on defenders, the top 5 defenders, we've mentioned Trent. Robertson comes out second overall, with Nat Phillips coming out third. So again, it loves Liverpool. John Stones, interesting one, comes out. It may be assuming that he plays, all the games. He has
suspended.
He was. I think, is he back? I think he might be back tomorrow. I think he might. He was suspended for 3 games. He missed the FA Cup game. And he's missed a league game. It may be his last game suspended, but he's in there. And Stuart Dallas, who we talked about, is fifth as well. So they are the top 5 predicted ones there. So it's looking at Liverpool, Spurs, and it's got Stones and Dallas in there as well. So that is what our prediction tool says. Okay, let's move on slightly to free hit teams. So some managers will have held back their free hit team for game week 36, and what we've got on screen now, Fantasy Football Hub contributor at FPL Lens has just put up his free hit team. So he's got Martinez in goals away to Palace. He's gone for Luca Dean, who's actually his vice captain in this. Alexander-Arnold against West Brom. John Stones away to Newcastle. He's put Mane as captain. Son at home to Wolves. Salah, Rafinha, we mentioned earlier, away to Burnley. And then he's gone for the Everton double up of Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin up front, with Chris Wood at home to Leeds. So that is his free hit team there. Very nice looking team. Lots of nice home fixtures. The away ones are nice as well. He's got a bench of Button, El Ghazi, Reguilon and Mitchell. In terms of this then, Rich, have you got any thought, any kind of glaring omissions or anyone else who you think should be in that team?
Yeah, it is quite on initial assessment, it is quite different to what a number of free hits I think we would see. I mean, very bold Mane captaincy, with Salah in the team as well. So why? I'll obviously offer some different views. What I would say, why would you captain Mane over Salah when Salah has penalties and so on? And clearly is probably the better form player over the season. Mane could absolutely score 2 goals in any given week, but I'm not sure what Lens is trying to achieve with the Mane captaincy.
I think that
maybe it's a differential that he's trying to gain ground.
I think that Lens looks at this stuff through like a statistical kind of lens, and he uses his own algorithms and his own stats and things. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No. Interesting. Yeah. But it just stood out at me, as did the 2 Everton strikers. Again, that was very very bold. And I've obviously been talking about my lack of love for Everton just from a point of view of being convinced by them. So that's really is going all in if you've got Digne, Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin. But it's a free hit. It's not a permanent investment. It could pay off. What do you think of that? Do you think it's too bold, or do you think it's really what you would do?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's bold enough, to be honest. I think I would. And just as I said that, someone in the chat, so Snazzy Viking says Mahrez over Richarlison. So I think I would definitely.
I have Mahrez in on a free hit.
I think I do that move. I think the rest of it is pretty. It's pretty good actually. Bale is maybe another one, because I know he can be in and out, but he's kind of feast or famine, right? So if it's famine, it's not the end of the world, because it's difficult for any player to score FPL points. But if Bale has one of those really, really good games, where he clocks yet another 18 points, whatever it is, which he's got a couple of in the last few weeks, then he can be a good one. But I do think overall it's pretty decent. Nike 10 says Antonio over Richarlison. No Kane in there. Interesting. He's probably the biggest glaring omission. I'd probably not have Mane and go Kane instead, but I would be tempted on a free. And this is so in terms of thinking of an upside move on free hit. The free hit for me, I see it as a kind of a bonus chip, if that makes sense. So I think that if I was to play my free hit, I would expect to score higher than the average anyway, right? That's my my kind of thinking. But I would with that in mind, I would be tempted to put the captaincy on someone like Calvert-Lewin, because if you put it on Kane and he performs, Kane's effective ownership in terms of captaincy, or sales or whatever, will be really high anyway, right? So you are going to get a bit of a bonus. So let's say your free hit could will get you a 25-point bonus, for example, right? If you lose out on 11 points for going Kane over Calvert-Lewin, your bonus is reduced from 25 to 14. Okay, but you've still got your green arrow. It's still been a profitable chip. However, if it swings the other way around and you make it with 11 points, suddenly that 25-point swing you've got goes up to 36, and that for me, when we define kind of chasing upside, it's taking a risk, kind of even knowing you're going to get a green arrow anyway, but how green can you actually get it? And I think I would use this as an example of an opportunity. Like I personally like Calvert-Lewin in this fixture. He's not going to be for everyone, so I may go for him in this scenario. But I think in terms of just thinking about that, if you're reasonably confident of a green arrow anyway, why not try and get a really big green arrow instead of just a green arrow?
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably throw Foden in there this week.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Not necessarily the maximum budget, but if you're going to switch the money around a little bit, money shouldn't be an issue on free hit anyway.
Cool. Mauro made a good point. Doesn't need so much money on the bench. You've got Reguilon on the bench, so that's a good point. Guy Parfitt says, think he's been skewed by the holes of Vardy and Iheanacho in the 5-0 against Sheffield United there. Maybe, but they have been pretty awful in all fairness. And FPL Fozzie says Foden, I wouldn't go double Everton attack on a free hit. So that Foden pick there. But there's some really good options there. Really good free hit options.
I'm surprised Dallas isn't in this team. I'd put Dallas straight into a free hit team just because he's so attacking. I know he's playing Burnley, but I'd still have him in this week.
Okay. I can't hear you very well, Rich, but I'm not sure whether it's because
I would still have Stuart Dallas in a free hit.
It's every time you talk about Dallas, it is, Rich. Every time you talk about Dallas, you say it under your breath for some reason. That's the second time. That's the second time you've told us about Dallas, and you said it under your breath.
Not having him for the last 5 weeks. Yeah, no, exactly.
Okay, so moving on then now, Rich. So I've got your team on screen. Do you want to read your team out for our podcast listeners, and then maybe discuss your thoughts on your transfers for game week 36?
Okay. All right. So my game week 36 team, just purely due to players who have a fixture or a potential fixture, is Fraser Forster, who may not play, and we'll come onto that in more detail. Trent Alexander-Arnold, Soufal, Joel Ward, Palace, and then in the midfield, Salah has a game against West Brom, Son against Wolves, Lingard against Brighton, and then I've got two blankers because there isn't any space for them in the bench at the moment, which is Maddison and Fernandes, who are not going to play, and none of my bench plays, Mendy, Holding, Fofana and Iheanacho. And I've also got Vidra against Leeds and Kane against Wolves. So I've got 9 players at the moment and 2 free transfers. Okay. So I can just about get an 11 out, if nobody else gets injured and so on and so forth, and everybody plays. So what I'm planning to do is definitely sell James Maddison. And I'm likely to sell him for Rafinha, as previously discussed.
Yeah.
That will give me 1.8 million, unless prices change overnight, and that gives me an opportunity to sell Wesley Fofana for Stuart Dallas, which is a 0.2 million increase, and gives me exact money for the Antonio move that we've been discussing.
Yeah.
For Vidra, and that I think if we've got another slide that shows.
Oh no, mate, got it all up.
Would look like after those transfers. I think for 4 points that looks like a good upgrade.
Oh, absolutely. As you say, all 3 transfers you're bringing in there. So you're bringing in Dallas, Rafinha, and Antonio, all for a -4. They've all got 3 good fixtures till the end of the season. That's what a hit's all about, right? You've transformed your team there. You've got 11 out for 36, and you've transformed your team for 37 and 38. Absolutely think they're the right calls.
Good, thank you for that. I don't know. It would be good to know what the guys in the chat think of that as well, because I'm not completely sure. I mean, if I was being really conservative, I'd change the keeper or change one of the keepers.
Yeah,
I'm not sure about the what that's going to get me.
Exactly.
I'm 4 points to get 4 points. Right?
I feel exactly the same, and it's very rare. It's very rare. In all the years I've played FPL, I can't remember the last time I didn't have a keeper play, but for some reason I'm not really that bothered this week because there's so many better options where you can use your transfers. Look at the ones we've mentioned: Dallas, Rafinha, Antonio, Wood, Calvert-Lewin, Bamford. All these plays that a keeper to me at the moment is pretty. It's pretty much. I wouldn't say not needed. I hope one of them starts. But, if not, FPL Fozzie says Rafinha might be a bit rusty after the injury. I'm not sure, Fozzie, but if you watched him against Spurs last week, he didn't look rusty to me. But we will see. Obviously, now he's got to play 3 games in a week. Wherever it is, or 8 days. So we will see.
It's really the fact that he's an exciting player,
of course,
and he gives me the enablement of the other moves because I've got no cash. So it's the fact that he gives me from Maddison gives me nearly £2 million to spend elsewhere in the squad, as well as a player that I will immediately start. So
as people in the chat are loving transfers, Guy Parfit, think those transfers are spot on. James C. thoughts on risking it without force. I think we mentioned this. I think I don't personally think it matters for one game week. I think you agree there. And Maro says definitely worth a -4 hit. Team looks strong for the final few fixtures. Preston Resclaff says could just do Iheanacho to Antonio if there is a price rise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's tight because if there is a price rise on Dallas or Antonio, I don't really want to make the transfer tonight. I want to make sure that there's no other injuries like Salah or
of course, yeah. All these are pending that match. Absolutely.
That's going to be a key match. So I've made the mistake as well of following some of these price rise sites and making a transfer, and the guy doesn't rise anyway.
Yeah.
So definitely I'm going to hold off until all the games are completed. But it is tight. And I think the other one is I've just worked out that I could, if I do get a bit of FOMO over Calvert-Lewin, I could do Iheanacho to Calvert-Lewin. To your other caller that said it may not be too late on Calvert. Yeah, it might not be, absolutely. So that's definitely another option.
So some shouts in the chat. So we've now got my team on screen, and talking about in the chat maybe Mendy to Mesley, for example. But one of the questions we have had off Michael Lynch, reasons for not shipping Bruno. Rich, I'm not sure he'll start in 38 of the Europa League final. So just look at my team, and so I'm gonna shift on Bruno, but I'll touch on that now. So I've got Forster in goals for 36. If he played, he played. He doesn't. I gotta be honest, I'm not that bothered because he's Southampton anyway, and Southampton don't do clean sheets anyway. So this is the kind of way of thinking about it. If I had a really expensive keeper, or even someone like Martinez, for example, who can get those massive hauls, I think I'd be a bit more inclined to change him. But the fact I've got Forster, if Fulham scores, Fulham score, would I be surprised? Absolutely not. So the fact, it's either, I would expect a 2-pointer anyway. This is why I'm not that fussed. The rest of my team, I've got Dallas, Kufal or Sufal, and Alexander-Arnold back three. Really happy with that back three. Got Jota, Son, Salah, and Lingard in midfield. And currently, then my team is Watkins, Calvert-Lewin. So I've got 10 starters before before I make a transfer. Then got Iheanacho, Mendy, Bruno, Rudiger, and Shaw. Aman in the chat. Nacho to Davis, Fergie. Absolutely not. Even though I know tomorrow Keenan Davis is going to do me a mischief when he starts against Everton and scores, but we'll see there. But my plan here, so I kind of made this plan last week. I put it, I put it on Twitter on Friday. Was to do the hokey cokey with Kane. So I took out Kane. Thankfully, it's worked out this week. In terms of that, I took out Kane for Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin has got 9 points already with another game to play. Hopeful, of another maybe six or seven potentially. So that will have worked out really well. I brought in Watkins as well with this game week in mind. So I'll be playing him away to Palace as well, Watkins, because he'll be back for that game in 36. So my plan this week is to take out Bruno and Iheanacho for Kane and Rafinha. Now, it does mean I have to actually have a player on the bench, but I don't mind that because, are we sure all this 11 will actually play anyway, right? So it does mean I'm taking a hit to potentially stick one on the bench, but I'm not that bothered. So I will have a team then, like I say, of Forster, Dallas, Kufa, Alexander-Arnold, Jota, Son, Salah. Probably it'll be either Lingard or Watkins, who I bench, one or the other, and Rafinha, who I will play, and then either Watkins or Lingard, Calvert-Lewin, and Kane up front. Now, looking ahead to 37, then I'm pretty set on getting Bruno back, but at the moment I will then have 2 million in the bank after that. I can potentially do Son straight back up to Bruno in 37, which I'm kind of happy with. Or obviously depend on injuries, depend on rotations and all this stuff. It could be Kane out, could be Salah out, or whatever. But I do have enough to move Son straight up to Bruno then 37 for free, and I can either then make a move or take a hit if I wanted to move, or maybe Watkins for Bamford, for example, or something like that as well. So that's my rough thoughts.
I like the moves. I think that I like the Rafinha, the pivot on Rafinha, and allows you to just swap that money straight back into Kane. And he's normally strong at the end of the season. He's obviously wanting to go into form into the Euros and also potentially say goodbye to Tottenham, right? He's not definitely going, but he may well, have a swan song.
I hope not. But
got a ticket to the Villa game next week, and it could be the last time he sees Harry Kane. So I think Kane will do well in the last three. I'm banking on that. So I think it makes sense to get him back. You could argue, if I'm just going to play devil's advocate there, or you're going to selling a player to bring him back. I've just done that with Son. It's 2 transfers to get Bruno back. Is there any other way you can get to Kane? But without generating 5 million quid in one transfer, you can't do it, can you? There's no way you can do it off another player unless you sell Salah.
Some there's been some really interesting options in the chat as well. So FPL X the Kid says Nacho to Bamford. I can't afford that because to answer FPL Fozzie's question, I don't have any money in the bank. James Harden says, think you'll want to be moving out Jota at some point due to rotation. Forster isn't playing well. You only have 10 men, says Ronak. Michael Lynch says, not tempted by any of the City boys. I'm kind of tempted, but I don't really have a route to them without taking out. Well, I lie actually. I could do Bruno straight down, but then I can't get Kane. So, and I'm not taking out Salah or Son to bring in Mahrez, for example. If I had the space there, I'd be tempted, but I haven't got the money for it.
Did you do Bruno to Mahrez, Calvert-Lewin to Kane?
No, I'm not taking out Calvert-Lewin ahead of home to Sheffield United. No, absolutely not.
I'm just saying whether or not you could do it.
I could money-wise, but there's no way I'm taking out a player who's at home Sheffield United. That is a suicide. FPL Alex the Kid says, Fergie, do Mendy and Nacho to Meslier and Bamford. That means I don't want Kane. I do want Kane. I want to protect my rank as well, right? They've got 2 nice fixtures next week. FPL 5 says, any plans for Kern in 38? Potentially, but it smacks a little bit of David Silva last week last season 38.
You remember last season we were doing the Hub Live thing.
We were saying they're going to give it to him. He's going to walk the ball in the net.
Exactly the same situation. It's about getting emotionally attached to Sergio Aguero.
So I think I actually took a hit. I took out De Bruyne for Silva for that game just for the nostalgia, and De Bruyne scored 2 goals and Silva blanked. If
I'd have done what the move that avoided the David Silva transfer, and I'd have got 2 more points that week, I'd have won the Hub Contributors League. I went for the David Silva thing.
Didn't quite work.
On emotion.
Muriga-san Loganathan has come up with a good idea actually about not getting Bruno back, but to go for Greenwood instead, which could actually be a pretty decent option because Greenwood's kind of output, over the last few games, he's at least matched Bruno, but it does save me a good, what would that be, 4 or 5 million as well. So that may be a good shout going into 37. Thank you very much for that. And Daniel Bennett's actually just said the same thing there. Michael Lynch, can you do Bruno to Foden and then Iheanacho to Kane? No, I could actually.
Yeah, that's a good.
I could actually. That's something to think about.
Yeah, it's only about 6'2", isn't he, Foden?
Yeah, I think I'd have about 1 million left then to play with, which means next week I couldn't do the Son to Bruno move. But as I've said, if I may be looking at Greenwood, I'll have to have a think about that. I'd have to have a think. But thanks for that, guys. Thanks, Mariga-san, Daniel, and Michael. Some really good options for me there to think about. Good stuff there. Okay, moving on, Rich. And we asked the question, who is the best captain for blank game week 36? Now, this is the first poll I've put up in a long time where the poll results were completely against what I expected. And I was very, very surprised at what came out. So we put up the Hub poll and I put up Harry Kane at home to Wolves, Mo Salah away to West Brom, Antonio away to Brighton, and Calvert-Lewin at home to Sheffield United. Mm-hmm. Now, I've got to be honest, I expected Kane to be the top by a fair distance. I've got to be honest. I'm not really sure why, but when you get just a hunch every week as who's going to be the kind of highest owned captain. But thousands of people voted on this, and Harry Kane only got 20% of the vote, which I was very surprised at. Salah got 53% of the vote away to West Brom. Calvert-Lewin got more than Kane, 23%, while Antonio only got 3.7%. So, Rich, I ask you the question, who is the best captain for blank game week 36?
Okay. I think the safest captain is Kane. Because he's sure to play. It's home to Wolves, on penalties, and what is it? What are we up to now? 33 returns in 35 games or something. I can't remember if it's a return a game, roughly. he doesn't normally blank 2 weeks in a row or 3 weeks in a row. So I think Kane is the safe bet. The reason for that is that actually I think there's a chance Salah gets benched against West Brom.
If he plays on Thursday against United.
Yeah, he plays 90 minutes against United. He's then got West Brom followed by Palace, is it, a few days later?
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it, there is rotation amongst those four Liverpool forwards, Firmino, Mane, Jota and Salah.
Yeah, we've already said that we think that Jota may be rested on Thursday, so you'd guess that probably either Salah or Mane would be rested.
In the mix for a benching against West Brom, right? So and then he's going to come on for 30 minutes. I've obviously fallen victim to captaining Salah this season, who I regularly captain. I think I did it on my triple captain. He got benched, and I got 4 points from the 2 fixtures. So I think he could get a benching. I don't think he'll start both West Brom and Crystal Palace.
Okay, that's interesting.
So that for that reason, I would captain Kane.
Okay.
I'm not saying he's going to be benched, but I think there's a chance.
Are you interested in any of the other options at all, or are you just kind of Kane and Salah, but you're in on Kane?
What were the other ones? Calvert-Lewin and who?
And Antonio. You need to laugh as you, as you say, Calvert-Lewin.
Yeah, no. Well, as I say, I wouldn't captain Calvert-Lewin. I'm jealous that I don't have him, but I wouldn't captain Antonio for the injury risk and the fact that I think Kane is just a much better choice. Really.
Okay, yeah, it's hard to argue. So I was really surprised at those results, but I actually see them potentially as a bit of an opportunity, because if a lot of people are going to be captaining Salah, Kane differential captain is quite a rare thing.
Yeah. So
Kane at home against a poor team. Let's face it.
I think tomorrow night's game is really key. I think if Liverpool win that fixture, then I don't know whether it's true, or maybe it was another pod I was listening to was saying that it's then in their own hands to get in the top 4. I don't know if that's actually true, but they've got to beat United.
I think after last night it might not be because of Leicester.
I was thinking that can't be right. Leicester have won, beaten United, so they've got to be in with a shout of beating Spurs on the last day and still getting the place. So. I think if they beat United though, they'll be going all out in those last 3 games, won't they, Liverpool?
Yes. Yep, cool. Good evening to John Tyner, if you remember. John used to join us in all the live streams when we did the Hub Lives last season. So for those who don't know, we were doing like a Saturday live at 3 p.m. every Saturday last season. And obviously that got canned this season because all the games were staggered out, but we're hoping to get that back up and running next season. Just to test on the captaincy from my perspective, I was very surprised. So I'm getting Kane back for the captaincy. There's no way I would take a hit to Kane, a hit to take Kane back if I wasn't going to captain him. So I think that Kane captaincy for me, I think he's the best shout, even though, he has maybe been a bit slow and off the pace, but like you say, he didn't look thrown off the pace when that first goal he scored last week, which was disallowed, was a fantastic finish. He was offside the second goal, and then he hit the bar with a free kick. I think Kane is a great captain option this week. Got some questions. FPL Fozzie. Fergi, do you think DCL hauls enough to warrant the armband? And someone else, I forget, sorry, it's higher up in the chat, but they made a really good point and said that it's not very often that DCL gets double-digit points, which is a really fair point, actually. So I think he's a good option, Calvert-Lewin, but kind of remembering that maybe not for captaincy unless you're chasing, right? And just on the Liverpool points, Liam Brees just made a good point. Chelsea losing tonight is good for Liverpool, actually, for the chase potentially for the top 4. So
they lost. I thought it was 1-1.
Pulisic equalised, but it was ruled out for offside, apparently.
So it's still 1-0.
Still 1-0, yeah.
I just saw an update saying it was 1-0.
Yeah, it's about 8 to 10 minutes left in that one.
Okay.
But yeah, so interesting one that, because if Chelsea lose, obviously that maybe then mean that it's in Liverpool's hands. But because Liverpool have got the 4 games remaining, whereas Chelsea have only got the 2. So if someone could confirm that in the chat, that'd be really useful, actually. But yeah, Kane for me, and Salah probably second. A bit of a boring one, but again, Kane against that Wolves defense seems to me anyway. Not the people who voted, like not the thousands of people who voted in the poll, but it seems to me a bit of a no-brainer this week. Personally, taking all this stuff in hand. Neil Olden, hands up, all those who brought Benteke in last week. What a shout that was, Neil. Absolutely hell of a call. And he scored the 2. Did he score the 2 goals really early on in both games, like the 4th minute and the 2nd?
2 minutes.
Absolutely amazing. I bet their owners thought he was on for mega hauls in both games after scoring.
They're going all right. They're going all right, Palace, generally.
Great shout, and Neil and anyone else who brought in Benteke there. Our prediction, just to remind ourselves for the prediction tool, actually says Salah is the best option for this game week, 6.7 points, while Kane comes in second, Mane third, Alexander-Arnold fourth, and Son fifth. It's probably hard to argue with that, actually, that, full of Liverpool and Spurs, as we mentioned earlier. Oh, and the guys in the chat just confirming, no, Leicester or Chelsea have to drop points still, so it's not in their hands. But if they do win, obviously on Thursday they're going to have to go for it, because Chelsea and Leicester play in the FA Cup final on the weekend, and Liverpool are going to play that game against West Brom, not knowing whether they're still in the race or not. So they will probably have to go still full pelt. So maybe that does give Salah a little bit more of an edge potentially.
Then he might not start the Palace game, but let's see. I'm not saying he's not going to start.
It would be Burnley midweek, wouldn't it? Which he may miss, and then home to Palace in front of the fans in 38 potentially. But this is all kind of wise and weird for us. Okay, so competition time for our YouTube watchers. So every week, all our YouTube watchers have a chance to win a Fantasy Football Hub mug, which I have in front of me here. Fantastic quality. I've been drinking a lovely cup of coffee out of it this evening, which will no doubt keep me up in the night, but it is worth it for you guys. We are selling these 2 along with other Hub merchandise in association with that FPL merch. There's a link in the description below. We're currently running a 20% off discount using coupon code FFHub20. I needed to catch up on these because I've had a bit of a nightmare trying to keep up. I can confirm no one picked out Chris Wood in Game Week 33, so he was the highest scorer in Game Week 33 with 20 points. In Game Week 34, Kane's effective ownership against Sheffield United in the top 10k was 181%, and we had a few winners actually, but the one I picked out was Nakul Ratan. Many congratulations to you, Nakul. So if you want to send me a DM and we will sort you out with a Fantasy Football Hub mug. And for Game Week 35, obviously we're still in the middle of the game week, so we won't know who the highest scorer is. Last week, Will chose Havertz and I chose Mane, so I might even be in with a shout of that still. Depends or not if he does something tomorrow and Greenwood maybe doesn't. So for the competition and chance to win one of these beautiful mugs, please like the stream. Everyone could just take half a second to press like. It would be really appreciated. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and then comment on who will be the top FPL point scorer in blank Game Week 36. It is limited to 1 entry each. If there is a tie, we'll do a random draw for the winner. Rich, who is your pick? We tend to go for a kind of left field pick, so don't go for anyone obvious, but who is your pick to be top point scorer in Game Week 36? You've gone silent, Rich.
I was muted. I had a bit of background noise. Sorry. I contradict myself and say Calvert-Lewin now.
Lenny Calvert-Lewin after all that, and you're going for the guy. You're going for the guy I picked earlier. Unbelievable. You even laughed when you said his name.
I won't say. I'm not allowed to say a really popular choice, am I? I would say,
Mahrez, okay. I'm going to go for a bit of a random, and I'm going to go for Bernardo Silva. So I think he's going to start. He's been playing that number 9 role-ish, haven't he, or slightly on the right. So I think I'll go for Bernardo. So make sure you put in the chat. We've had some shouts for Danny Ings, Foden, Sigurdsson, Eze, Seamus Coleman, Pereira, KDB. Ian says KDB 18 points. He really fancies KDB.
He's do a haul, isn't he? KDB, definitely.
It's hard to argue, to be honest, isn't it? Fair play. Okay, we haven't got a chance to show the mid-league update this week as we're still in the middle of the game week, so it will likely need to be a game week 38 showdown now for that winner. Don't forget the winner of the FF Hub. No, not the FF Hub, of the FPL Green Arrow Mini League gets a Fantasy Football Hub goodie bag and appearance on the 21-22 pre-season edition of the Green Arrow. So we're nearly at the end now. We've just got a couple of things to wrap up. So firstly, I need to get my phone out for this because it's pretty hot off the press, actually. But Fantasy Football Hub, as some of you may or may not know from our website, have teamed up with FanTeam for the Euros this summer. And we've managed to get a fantastic deal for anyone who is interested in playing the Euros. So basically the deal is £20 to enter the Euro 2020 tournament on FanTeam. However, the first prize is £200,000 and there are prizes all the way down. There are so many cash prizes. It is absolutely fantastic. So just to say that from FanTeam. However, the offer, which is absolutely ridiculous, bear in mind, all you have to do is pay £20 to enter FanTeam. You get a free €20 Monster ticket entry every week until the end of the season. So that is 3 €20 tickets. So that is worth €60 in itself. You get a special Euro 2020 free roll competition also. But the most impressive thing is you also get free Fantasy Football Hub membership for the entire year as well, which is worth between £20 and £25 as well. So basically, you're getting between, probably about in between £80 and £100 worth of fantasy football things there in terms of buy-ins, competitions, and memberships, all for £20. So the link is in the description. So I put it in about 10 minutes ago as you were chatting, Rich, because I just had it kind of hot off the press. But the link is in the description below. Look for Euro 2020 FanTeam offer. And if you sign up via that link, you'll get the free Monster tickets and you will get free Fantasy Football Hub membership for the 21-22 season. Absolutely ridiculous offer, if I say so myself. So absolutely superb. So make sure you go and do that if you're interested in playing in the Euros games. Rich, the best of luck to you for blank game week 36. I did see on Twitter that if you do reach that magical rank landmark of top 10k, it'll be your 9th top 10k finish. That FPL merch will make you your own underwear range, which we are now showing on screen for our YouTube watchers. They will be on sale at just £299 each. No, they won't. A limited edition.
And absolutely, I do not use body doubles in any of them.
Well, they are very snug. Is your bum like that, Rich?
Yeah,
like the one we've got on screen.
I do all my own arsework.
I need an extra large pair if I was wearing them. But yeah,
absolutely. No, mate. I think the reason I appeared on a list, I think a Premier Fantasy Tools list as being the 7th best manager of all time or something. So I thought that my
RC7,
you see, Cristiano move over.
Exactly, absolutely.
And Merch was very quick with his mock-up there. So
brilliant stuff. Where can people get hold of you, Rich?
I'm at Rich Clarke FPL on Twitter.
If you don't follow Rich, make sure you do, because in my humble opinion, I'm very open about this. Rich is probably the most underrated. I don't say underrated, but you are, for me, in the top 2 or 3 best FPL managers ever, both in terms of your record, but also in the way you explain how you play the game. It is an absolute pleasure to edit and publish your articles every single week, and I learn so much off you and Matthew. If you want to learn how Rich plays the game, it is all over fantasyfootballhub.co.uk. Rich Clarke reveals his team every single week for Hub members. So if you do this offer, then you can get to read, Rich does pre-season strategy articles, reveals his team every week with so much detail, watch list of players, who he's thinking of bringing in, who he's not, when he's using his chips, all this kind of thing. 35k for the last 15 seasons. Why wouldn't you? But anyway, Nookie just says, double crossbar Chelsea. Holy. I don't know if you had Moly on the end, but it looks like Chelsea are pressing right towards the end there. My Twitter handle, I've just realised I've left the boxer shorts on screen for a good couple of minutes there, Rich. So that arse is still on. So I'll knock that off before we get some complaints. I was just talking. How brilliant is that, Rich? I was just talking about how fantastic you are, and all I've got on screen at that point is just an arse. That's all I've got. I don't know if that's ironic, Rich, or what, but that is absolutely superb. My handle is at FFH_Fergi. So thank you so much, Rich, for coming on. Absolutely brilliant insight as usual. And thank you so much, as usual, for all our watchers and listeners for their great questions and comments. We love doing these streams. Thank you so much for joining us this week. This podcast and video will be on the Fantasy Football Hub YouTube channel, with the podcast versions available on all major podcast platforms. If you liked what you watched, please press the like button. Do it now. And remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast. So if you listen on Apple Podcasts, we would really, really appreciate it if you went on, left us 5 stars and left us a review. It would be really, really appreciated. And leave a comment too. Tell us how much you love us, how much you don't, anything we can improve on, anything at all. It really, really does help. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Green Arrow. So make sure you follow. Just to say that those asking about Adam earlier, thank you so much for asking. Adam is absolutely fine. He's just absolutely slammed at work. But thank you so much, everyone who's asking about him. He's, I think he's working, days, evenings, and weekends at the moment, so he just can't spare the time. He could come on the pod, but he couldn't come on the pod prepared with FPL in his mind, because he'd have been working right up to it, which is absolutely fair enough. And we're very, very fortunate to have some amazing guests on. We had Will on last week. We've had Rich on this week. If Adam can't make it next week, I'm sure we'll have on another great couple of guests. But thank you so much, everyone, for your support in these times. Only a couple of streams left, actually. We've got, I think we're doing our next one on Gameweek 37, so that'll probably be Monday night, a late one, a 10 o'clocker on Monday night after the last game and before the deadline on the Tuesday. And obviously we've got Gameweek 38 there. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you'll find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more, including Rich's team reveals. Rich tells you his moves before every game week. You don't have to copy them, but we can all learn from them. To join the tens of thousands of other fantasy managers, sign up to the hub, choose all our amazing resources. Just click the top link in the description below. You will not regret it. And thank you so much for all your comments saying, about having Rich on. Great pod. Really, really appreciate it, guys. And Sanjay Patel, is Adam ever prepared? Believe it or not, he does prepare an awful lot. It's very difficult to come on these pods with nothing, and as we've all done once or twice, I've got no doubt. I did it a couple of times last year and it was very tough. So Fergie, who are your best picks for the next 6 game weeks? I'm like, Kane, Salah. It's like, anyway. just gotta say, I've just noticed, I don't know if you can see it, Rich, on my screen, but I shaved earlier and I managed to put my razor on and nick a massive bit.
Oh yeah, I can see a little patch. Oh, yeah,
I don't know why I've even said that. I've just shown you that, but it popped up in my eye line then. I'll eventually finish this podcast, Rich. I promise. Yeah. I keep stopping. We will be back, likely, as I say, on Monday evening, I would guess, around 10 o'clock for a last gasp look ahead to Gameweek 37, with that deadline being on Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. before a final podcast of the season later in the week, as Gameweek 38 then quickly approaches. Stay safe, and may all your arrows be green. Good night, all.
Night, everybody.